I think the fight needs to happen. Him and Jake Paul, Tommy and Jake will get the fight done. And if Tommy can't splatter Jake Paul, I'll retire him from boxing myself. It doesn't need to be about. If he can't beat Jake Paul, forget about boxing. Because he's got ambitions of being a world champion. Never mind beating some YouTube guy. But it's a great fight for the social media world. But if Tommy has got any ambitions on being a world champion, his name's Fury. If he can't beat Jake Paul, I'll have to change his name. How about that?
Well, it's happening. Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul is official. It is going down. They are going to fight in a ring and see who is the more dominant fighter. And it sounds like Tommy Fury, based on what his older brother, the heavyweight champion, potentially one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, just said. He's going to change his name. He's going to retire him from boxing if Tommy loses. That's a lot of pressure going into a fight, considering your brother is one of the most prolific boxers to ever do it. Now, this is going to be an interesting fight because Tommy Fury isn't exactly a high-level pro boxer yet in his career. Neither is Jake Paul, though. They're both, I would say, at a low pro level. Now, technically on paper, Tommy Fury does have the advantage. He has more fights. He's bigger. He looks like he has faster hands. He looks like he knows how to put his weight behind a punch better. Looks like he's more balanced, puts himself in better positions than Jake Paul does, has a better understanding of how to really kind of land the knockout punch, how to set up combos. On paper, it looks like he should win. Now, the interesting thing is that neither of them have a very good defensive ability. Lots of times they both don't bring their hands back up to their head. They don't move offline. They don't use their feet to get them out of the way after they throw punches. So it's going to be a very, very fascinating fight. On paper, Tommy should win, but there's going to be so much pressure on him between his dad, his brother, Jake Paul, saying they're going to change his last name, his own brother, his own dad saying they're going to pull him from boxing, that if he can't beat Jake Paul, he doesn't belong in the boxing ring at all. Those are intense words to hear from your own family members, yet alone your brother, who is one of the greatest boxers of all time. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can deal with the pressure that's going to be bestowed upon him leading up to the fight, and especially on fight day. It's an interesting thing when you sign to fight Jake Paul. It's either going to be the best night of your life, you're going to get more famous than ever, you're going to get more notoriety, recognition, and adulation than you ever have before, or you're going to get mocked, denigrated, put down, and ostracized more than you ever have before in your life. Because if you lose to Jake Paul, you are never going to hear the end of it, especially if you're a real boxer, someone who's actually trying to pursue a boxing career like Tommy Fury is. If you're someone who's taking boxing seriously and you've had more fights than Jake and you lose to Jake, that looks really, really bad, and it almost does irreparable damage to your fight career. Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren aren't boxers. Neither of them are good at boxing, to be honest with you. They're really not. Just because Tyron Woodley's knocked people out in UFC does not mean he's a good boxer. And to be honest with you, as we saw, he really is not a good boxer. He's not bad, but he's not good. To be honest, he got outboxed by Jake. And like I said, neither Tyron Woodley or Ben Askren are known as boxers, yet those losses are going to remain in their legacy forever. Losing to Jake Paul, and especially getting knocked out by Jake Paul, like Ben Askren did and Nate Robinson did, that is never going to be forgotten, and they're pretty much never going to hear the end of it because of the persona that Jake Paul has created for himself, because he is and was a YouTuber, who transitioned to boxing, who has this narrative around him. You pretty much will never hear the end of it, and very likely it can ruin your career, especially because right now people still kind of take him as a joke, even though not necessarily. He is a decent boxer. I would put him at a high amateur, low pro level. I think this is going to be an interesting fight because him and Tommy Fury are not far off in terms of skill. Tommy is more well-rounded and better, but Jake does have power in his overhand right. He does have the ability to land the shot and set it up. It's going to be interesting. You know, if he tags Tommy Fury with a couple hard shots, Tommy might freak out and it might send him into a downward spiral and lead to his demise. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this one ends. I would lean towards Tommy if he can keep his composure. If not, I think Jake might run away with it, potentially even finish him. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. And I got to tell you, I can't wait.